In a quiet little house where hope seemed to have faded, 6-month-old Noah lay motionless in his crib, his legs lifeless. His parents, Olivia and Ryan, had grown accustomed to the despairing words of doctors, no cause, no cure. But on one fateful night, as darkness enveloped everything, a small golden retriever puppy named Milo did something no one expected. What happened next not only left everyone in awe but also reignited a flame of hope that had seemed extinguished forever. This is a story of love, perseverance, and a miracle from the most unexpected place. A story that reminds us that even in the darkest days, light can still find its way, sometimes through tiny paws and a wagging tail. In the small house nestled in a quiet street, the stillness of the night was only broken by the steady hum of the baby monitor. A soft night light cast gentle shadows on the walls of the nursery, creating a silent dance of light and darkness. At the center of the room, Noah, the 6-month-old baby, lay in his crib, his eyes closed, his tiny chest rising and falling rhythmically. But his legs, they remained still, showing no signs of life like other babies his age. No kicking, no wiggling toes, no movement at all for months. The doctors had told his parents, Olivia and Ryan, that Noah's paralysis had no clear cause and no hope of recovery. They called it a medical mystery. But for Olivia and Ryan, it felt like a cruel, unchangeable fate. Outside the nursery, Olivia curled up on the couch, clutching Noah's small blanket like a precious keepsake. The sweet scent of her baby still lingered on the fabric, bringing back memories of his early days, when he stretched his legs freely, reached for her with eager little hands, and filled the house with bright, innocent laughter. Now those memories felt like sharp knives piercing her heart every time she thought of them. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks as she glanced at Ryan, who sat beside her, staring blankly at the floor. "I don't know how much more I can take," Olivia whispered, her voice trembling as if afraid to hear her own words. "I keep thinking, what if this is it? What if he never moves again?" Ryan let out a slow, heavy breath, rubbing his hands over his face as if trying to erase the exhaustion that weighed on him. "We have to keep hoping," he said, but his voice lacked the confidence it once had. Hope, something they had clung to like a lifeline, now felt as fragile as a thread on the verge of snapping. They had been through countless tests, seen specialists, read every medical journal they could find, but the answer remained the same: nothing could be done. At their feet, the small golden retriever puppy, Milo, lifted his head, ears perked up, eyes shifting between Olivia, Ryan, and the nursery door. From the moment Noah was born, Milo had been drawn to him, often curling up beside the crib like a silent guardian. Olivia and Ryan had assumed it was just natural puppy behavior, but now they saw something else. Milo seemed to understand that something was wrong. Tonight Milo was different. His body was tense, his tail still. He wasn't just lying beside Noah, he was watching him with an intensity Olivia had never noticed before. She saw it but brushed it off, murmuring, "At least he loves Noah. I just wish love was enough to change everything." She had no idea that, in that very moment, her wish was about to come true, a miracle beyond imagination, one that began with a small puppy and a motionless baby. The night stretched on in heavy silence. Olivia and Ryan remained on the sofa, too exhausted to talk but too restless to sleep, haunted by an unshakable unease. Their lives had long become an endless cycle, doctor visits with unchanged results, long nights spent searching for answers online, and prayers that seemed to go unheard. They weren't just fighting for Noah, they were fighting to hold on to themselves, to keep from being swallowed by despair. In the nursery, Noah slept peacefully, his tiny face serene, unaware of the countless tears his parents had shed for him. His small hands rested near his chest, fingers slightly curled, but his legs remained motionless, a cruel reminder of what they had lost. Milo lay beside the crib, his warm brown eyes never leaving Noah. For weeks, he had been there, refusing to move even for a moment. At first, Olivia and Ryan thought it was just an innocent attachment between a dog and a child. But lately, Milo had changed. He was no longer just a companion, he was watching over Noah, as if waiting for something even they dared not dream of. On that fateful night, Milo's waiting turned into action. Suddenly, he stood up, his ears twitching as if hearing something beyond human perception. He paced around the crib, looking at Noah, then at the door, then back again. His usual calm demeanor was gone, replaced by an inexplicable urgency. Then, without warning, he placed his front paws on the crib's railing, letting out a small whimper. He nudged the wooden bars with his nose, then turned toward the door as if calling for someone. In the living room, Olivia heard the sound. She sat up straight, her brows furrowing. "Did you hear that?" she asked, turning to Ryan. He nodded, immediately getting up from the sofa. "Yeah, it sounded like Milo." They rushed toward the nursery, their hearts pounding, not out of fear, but because of a vague intuition, a feeling they couldn't name. When they reached the doorway, they saw Milo standing on his hind legs, his nose pressed against the crib's railing, letting out another soft whimper. His tail wagged slowly, deliberately, full of meaning. But what stunned Olivia wasn't just Milo's actions, it was Noah. His tiny fingers twitched. It was just a small movement, almost imperceptible, but Olivia saw it clearly. She held her breath, clutching Ryan's hand. "Ryan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Look at his hand." Ryan's eyes widened, his breath hitching. They stood frozen, watching, hardly daring to believe what they were seeing. And then, the true miracle began. Noah's fingers curled and then stretched out again, slow, delicate, but unmistakable, as if he was responding to something unseen. For the first time in months, Olivia felt a spark of hope, fragile, like the flicker of a newly lit flame, but strong enough to make her heart race. Olivia tightened her grip on Ryan's hand, her eyes locked on Noah's tiny fingers. The movement was small, but it was real. For months they had only been able to watch their son lie still, while doctors repeated the same hopeless verdict: no cure, no chance. They had imagined this moment 100 times, only to remind themselves it was just a dream that would never come true. And yet, right in front of them, Noah's fingers moved again, this time, more clearly, as if something inside him was awakening. Ryan stepped closer to the crib, his voice trembling. "Noah!" He reached out, his hands shaking on the edge between fear and hope. Noah's eyes remained closed, his breathing steady, his body still, except for that tiny hand. Milo let out another soft whimper, pressing his head against the crib railing, as if he understood the gravity of this moment. His tail wagged slowly but with certainty, his eyes never leaving the little boy. "Noah, can you hear me?" Olivia knelt beside the crib, gently touching her son's hand, needing to feel it for herself. And then it happened again. Noah's tiny fingers curled around hers, weak but undeniable. A choked sob escaped her lips as she turned to Ryan, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Did you see that?" Ryan nodded, his eyes wide, caught between shock and overwhelming joy. "I saw it," he whispered, swallowing hard. "I saw it." In that moment, everything else blurred into insignificance. The months of helplessness, the sleepless nights searching for answers, the exhaustion that had seeped into their bones, it all disappeared. Only one thing mattered now: their little boy, who had been still for so long, was moving. Milo let out a small bark, his excitement growing. He placed his paws on the crib railing again, gently nudging it, his bright eyes fixed on Noah. It was as if he knew something more was about to happen. And then, just as Olivia was about to call the doctor, just as Ryan reached for his phone to capture the moment, Noah's hand lifted, slow, unsteady, but with a strength they hadn't seen in months. Olivia gasped, covering her mouth, unable to believe her eyes. Ryan sucked in a sharp breath, gripping the crib's edge as if he needed something to hold onto. Noah's fingers twitched again, his small hand stretching toward Milo, as if he somehow knew the little dog had always been there, waiting and watching over him. And then, for the first time in months, Noah's leg moved. Just a small shift beneath the blanket, but it was real. A strangled sob escaped Olivia as she knelt beside the crib, her trembling hands brushing against her son's warm cheek. His tiny face remained peaceful, his eyelashes fluttering as if he were on the edge of waking up. Ryan ran a hand through his hair, his voice thick with emotion. We need to call someone, the doctor, someone needs to see this. But Olivia shook her head. She was afraid that if she looked away, this moment would vanish like a dream. Not yet, she whispered. Let him keep going. Noah let out a faint whimper, a small sound that ignited hope within them like a flame. His fingers curled, his legs twitched, and then, his deep brown eyes slowly fluttered open, gazing up at them with innocence, unaware that he was at the center of a miracle. His gaze shifted to Milo, and the little dog wagged his tail, letting out a joyful bark. In that moment Noah, the boy the doctors had said might never recover, lifted his hand and reached for Milo. Olivia broke down, sobbing uncontrollably, her whole body trembling with emotion. Ryan turned away, rubbing his face in a futile attempt to stop the tears, but they kept falling. Noah's tiny fingers brushed against Milo's fur, and the dog immediately leaned into the touch, welcoming it with gentle acceptance. In that moment, something within Olivia and Ryan changed. For the first time in months, they were no longer drowning in helplessness or fear. They felt hope, not the fragile kind, but a fierce belief that things could be different. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions unlike anything they had ever experienced: hope, relief, gratitude, and even confusion. Every morning, Noah showed small but undeniable progress. His fingers gripped tighter, his legs kicked beneath the blanket, and the smile, the pure, radiant smile they had feared they would never see again, began to return to his tiny face. The doctors, who had once shaken their heads at Noah's condition, were now astonished, calling it an unexplainable recovery. They ordered more tests, MRIs, and analyses of every possible data point, but no one could find a clear answer. One doctor even admitted, "This is something science cannot explain." But Olivia and Ryan didn't need science to understand. To them, this miracle wasn't about numbers or machines. It was about Milo, the little dog who had never left Noah's side, even in the darkest days. From that fateful night, Milo became an inseparable part of Noah's journey. Every time the baby twitched a finger or moved his leg, Milo was there, wagging his tail and letting out a soft bark, as if cheering him on. Olivia began calling Milo their little hero. And though Ryan didn't say much, he often stroked the dog's head with a look of quiet gratitude. But the miracle didn't stop there. By the time Noah was 8 months old, he started sitting up, not steadily, but enough to make Olivia cry all over again. At 10 months, he reached for toys, his tiny fingers gripping a rubber ball that Milo often brought him. And then, on a bright spring morning, with sunlight streaming through the window, Noah did something they once thought was impossible. He crawled. Just a few centimeters, slow and unsteady, but he moved. Olivia dropped to the floor, wrapping her son in her arms, while Ryan burst into laughter, a sound he couldn't remember the last time he had made. As always, Milo was right there, circling Noah with uncontrollable excitement. The little dog seemed to understand that his job was far from over. He wasn't just the one who started the miracle, he was the one keeping it going. Whenever Noah stumbled or grew tired, Milo would lie beside him, pressing his nose against the boy's hand as if to say, "Keep going, I'm here." As time passed, the story of Noah and Milo spread throughout the neighborhood. Neighbors stopped by, bringing toys for Noah and treats for Milo. Some even called it the Golden Retriever miracle. Though Olivia wasn't fond of the attention, she couldn't deny that Milo had changed everything. But for her and Ryan, the real significance wasn't in what people said, it was in the fact that their family had found light again after months of darkness. One peaceful afternoon, just before Noah's first birthday, Olivia sat in the rocking chair, cradling him in her arms. He could now hold a spoon, though most of his food ended up on the floor for Milo to claim. She glanced down at the little dog curled up beside them, his golden fur glowing in the soft light. Stroking his head, she whispered, "You didn't just save him. You saved us too." Milo let out a soft sigh, nuzzling closer as if he understood. Ryan walked into the room, a cup of coffee in hand, smiling at the sight before him. "He's growing up so fast," he said, sitting beside Olivia. "And Milo still thinks he's his personal babysitter." Olivia chuckled, for the first time in months without any trace of sadness. "Maybe he's right," she said. "I don't know how we would have made it without him." Noah looked up, his bright brown eyes sparkling, and let out a delighted sound as he reached for Milo. The little dog immediately lifted his head, wagging his tail in response. In that moment, Olivia realized something profound. Miracles didn't always come in the form of medicine or science. Sometimes, they came in the simplest things: a touch, a steadfast gaze, or a little dog who refused to give up. Years later, when Noah had grown into a healthy, energetic boy, the story of the night Milo woke him remained an irreplaceable part of their family. Olivia and Ryan would sometimes retell it, though Noah would only laugh and say, "I don't remember any of that, but I know Milo's my best friend." And Milo, now older, still remained by Noah's side every day, though his steps had slowed with time. Watching her son play with the old dog in the yard, Olivia often reminded herself that life always has a way of bringing hope, even when everything seems hopeless. Miracles are not always grand or loud. Sometimes, they come quietly through love, patience, and the small things we often overlook. For their family, this miracle had 4 legs, golden fur, and a heart that never stopped believing. And no matter how many challenges life might bring, Olivia knew they would always overcome them, because they had learned that as long as there is love and hope, nothing is impossible. Life sometimes pushes us into dark corners, where every door seems closed, where hope is just a faint, flickering light. But Noah and Milo's story teaches us one thing: miracles do not lie in grand events or perfect scientific explanations. They hide in the simplest moments: a weak but determined touch, an unwavering light, or the silent loyalty of a little dog. Milo not only saved Noah but also pulled Olivia and Ryan out of the darkness of despair, reminding them, and all of us, that love, no matter how small, has the power to move even the impossible. So, when you feel lost, remember that light can come from the most unexpected places. Never stop believing, never stop loving, because within those simple things, miracles are waiting to bloom.